London, a magnet for the super wealthy looking to benefit from skyrocketing property prices while avoiding the taxes we all have to pay. The government says it's clamping down on tax avoidance to help pay off the deficit. Yet this programme has found that some of these practices are linked to those at the very top. This is a private gated street called Denning Mews in Clapham, South London. 16 houses, 32 apartments and a smart mews development worth millions of pounds.
Now, before the iron gates and luxury homes went up behind me, this land used to be owned by a company called Osborne and Little. You might have heard of it. It's the family business of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne. Now, we've discovered the Chancellor's family business sold this land for development to a secretive offshore company. A company that could have legally avoided a fortune in British taxes.
For years, the Chancellor has been a vociferous critic of offshore tax avoidance.
I regard tax evasion and indeed aggressive tax avoidance as morally repugnant.
And the message is very simple. If you're hiding your money offshore, we are coming to get you.
And just a few weeks ago, during the election campaign, he trotted out the same line in an interview with Channel 4 News.
Well, people can judge me by my track record. In budget after budget, I've taken aggressive action against people who aggressively avoid all their taxes.
But despite all his strong words, it seems his own family firm had no problem teaming up with an offshore company for a £6 million property deal. Osborne and Little is an upmarket wallpaper company with showrooms on the King's Road in Chelsea. But back in 2004, the company made repeated losses. The company's bosses, the Chancellor's father, Sir Peter Osborne, and his uncle Anthony Little, were looking to free up some assets. One option was the site of the firm's old factory, in what is now Denning Mews.
We've poured over all the information about this deal. There are contracts, plans and deeds all about this development.
The plans show Osborne and Little joined forces with a developer called Nightingale Mews, based in the British Virgin Islands. Together, they submitted plans to Wandsworth Council to develop the site with 16 upmarket Mews houses and 2 blocks of flats, all with underground parking. If the plan was approved, Nightingale would buy the land for £6 million, which it did in May 2005. At the time, George Osborne was already Shadow Chancellor. The Register of Members' Interest reveals he was the beneficiary of a trust fund which owned more than 15% of Osborne and Little, so he would have personally benefited from the sale. We took the information to a leading tax expert to take us through the deal.
What does this document tell us? Did Osborne and Little know that the firm they were selling to is registered offshore?
Yeah, and if you look at this agreement here, you'll see that the buyer company is named, and then it's expressly described as incorporated in the British Virgin Islands, and then we've got a registration number and address in the British Virgin Islands. So it's quite clear that we're dealing with an offshore company. What that means is that the company will buy the property, do it up, sell it, make a profit, and instead of paying UK tax on that profit, it would be able to realise that profit tax-free.
So the British taxpayer sees nothing of it?
Correct.
So is there any actual gain to Osborne and Little?
Where they benefit, everyone who owns UK property benefits from the prices of UK property being so high because offshore wealth can come in and invest and then take its returns tax-free.
So how much tax could the developer avoid by being offshore? We've looked at what the homes were sold for once they were built.
One sold for almost £850,000. This one went for nearly £1 million. We looked at 32 sales, and in total, they went for around £20 million.
We've calculated that in the end, the Treasury may have lost up to £2 million in avoided taxes. And who were the developers? All we know is that the company was dissolved once the new homes were sold. But Denning Mews is just one small street. We've obtained and analysed new data from the Land Registry. It reveals that more than 73,000 homes in the UK are owned by companies based in offshore tax havens.
Now, to show you just how common this practice is for the wealthy, we've come to the most expensive street in the country, Grosvenor Crescent in Belgravia. If you're doing pretty well for yourself to live here, the average home costs £17 million. We found one flat that was registered to a company in the British Virgin Islands, another to a company in Guernsey, and a whole chunk registered in Jersey. In fact, every other residential property in this street is registered offshore.
There's no suggestion George Osborne, Osborne and Little, or Nightingale Mews did anything illegal. We asked the Chancellor if he was aware of the deal and aware of the agreement to sell to an offshore company, and put to him that the taxpayer could have lost millions of pounds. His office refused to answer any of our questions, saying only that this was a bogus and desperate story. Osborne and Little told us they simply sold the site and paid all the taxes that were due. They said they couldn't comment on the tax affairs of another company. Tomorrow, the Chancellor will unveil billions of pounds of cuts to welfare payments and tax credits for the working poor. But what will he do to tackle tax avoidance by the super rich and to stem their appetite for the lucrative London property market tax-free?